32 years old, from Florence, killed in the collapse along with his fiancée Marta, as well as them, Andrea Colucci, 37, a father, an amateur footballer, killed on his way to work, and Stella Boccia, 24 years old, died in the collapse. And this is how her parents told the customers of the restaurant that they own that they'd lost their daughter. They put a sign up saying that we apologise to our customers, we'll be closed for mourning. Unfortunately, a piece of our hearts remained under the rubble of the bridge. And also 34-year-old Elisa Boccio from here in Genoa. She lost her life as well on that bridge, posting on Facebook just in the last few days or so, how can I not celebrate life? Like I said, it's those kind of heartbreaking details that we've been hearing over the last sort of 18 hours that really, it's just increasing the anger about what's happened here in Genoa.
Thanks, Nick. Thank you very much.
Well, we're joined now in the studio by a civil engineer who's also a search and rescue volunteer, Josh Makabuag. You've been to Nepal and other disaster areas. At this stage, what is going through the mind of those rescuers? How are they going to proceed?
Well, OK, so some time has elapsed, right? So they've already rescued a large number of people and the people that were immediately able to reach. What they're looking for now is the people that are entombed within the structure, so the people they couldn't get to sooner. And what's crucial there is survivable voids. They're looking for the people that are trapped in spaces, perhaps between concrete slabs, etc., that will then require heavy lifting and shifting of that, breaching through the slabs, etc. So they're going to be using different techniques to try and find any live casualties within that structure.
And how stressful is it to be in that situation, knowing that your every move is another minute, you know, from somebody who might need rescuing, and you've got to work quickly but carefully?
Yeah, it's exactly that. There's two real things that are going through your mind, and that's the urgency and the pressure. So the urgency is exactly as you say, people are trapped and they need medical attention.
Have you been in a situation where you can hear people but you can't see them?
Yeah, well, the first process is to arrive at the site and try and find out where people are. So that would be a case of looking, listening, asking people how many people were in there, where were they, and if you can hear them, that's obviously the first indication. And then one of the pieces of equipment that search and rescue teams use is sounding equipment that you place over the structure, microphones that you use to listen for people trapped, and you then move those microphones accordingly to hone in on a position. So sound is one of the tools you use. Yeah,
and it must be quite a case that you've got to keep your mind very clear and not get emotional, presumably, about what you may find.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I think the first time that you come across a disaster situation, then it's very hard to do just that. You know, you are kind of overwhelmed by what you're seeing. But at the same time, as you say, you have a very specific job to do. It's very difficult because of the pressure of, for example, the people around. There'll be, in many situations, a lot of people watching.
Family.
Those people watching will be family, etc. So it's very important to try and do your job professionally, and try and assure those people that are watching that everything that can be done is being done.
But I suppose at this stage it's very worrying, isn't it, that I suppose if there's anybody else who may have survived this long. But thank you for that really interesting insight, and thank you for doing the job you do. We're
going to go back to Genoa now. Therefore, as journalist and engineering expert Catherine Smale, with her view on what may have gone wrong there. And Catherine, as the investigators begin to go through all that rubble, what will they be looking for? What clues could there be to why that bridge collapsed?
So at the moment it's a bit too early to tell in terms of what might have caused it, but the investigators will now be looking at where the rubble has fallen to see kind of if they can find out which bit has been triggering the collapse. They'll be looking at eyewitness statements, they'll be looking at video footage, they'll then be looking at the maintenance records of the bridge before it collapsed, and they'll be looking at what work was going on to the bridge when it was in the process of collapsing.
And Catherine, are there other bridges of that design in Italy?
There are a couple of bridges of this kind of ilk. The bridge was built in 1960 and it's quite a unique design. by a designer called Morandi, and he has got a couple of bridges around. But it's all about kind of the concrete and making sure that it's maintained and making sure that, you know, you've got a proper maintenance regime in place. We don't know what's collapsed this bridge at the moment, and so it's too early to tell, but I'm sure that there are maintenance regimes in place around in the different bridges to make sure this doesn't happen again.
Well, something happened there, something that went catastrophically wrong, and there's all sorts of questions and theories, everything from the consistency of the concrete mix to mafia involvement.
Mafia involvement, that's the first. I haven't quite heard of that one yet, but no, I mean, when these things happen, it's generally not one cause, not one single thing. It's generally a culmination of events that come together and kind of cause this kind of horrible, catastrophic collapse. And so it's now a case of piecing all of those different things together. I've heard that the weather potentially was a factor in terms of potentially the rain has washed away foundations and therefore undermined the tower and caused that to collapse. We do know it's a very kind of unusual collapse in terms of normally when bridges go, they have a section of deck which might collapse rather than the whole tower. And so, you know, investigators will be looking at this very, very carefully to see what's happened.
Catherine, as someone who has, you know, the interest in engineering that you have, and just as a witness bearing testament to what's there, what is it actually like to witness what is behind you?
To be honest, it's incredibly harrowing. You turn up here, and I did hold back tears yesterday. It's a horrible moment to look at it and think, as a designer, it's an awful moment. My heart goes out to the people who were affected by the tragedy. And looking at it, things like this should not happen. And in this day and age, it's a very scary thought. But I think that now, you know, this will have big kind of repercussions or big feelings around the industry and certainly around the engineering community and the people who look after, own and maintain these assets around the world.
Catherine, appreciate your take on things. Catherine Smale is a journalist. She's also an engineering expert there with her take on things. And it is amazing that, you know, when we talk now of things like the weather could have had a problem, a bearing on what you saw there. Lightning strike, rain, as Catherine said, washing away the foundations. Surely. And as for the mafia involvement, apparently one of the theories is they're linked to the delivery of concrete and the quality of the concrete linked to certain public buildings. More on this throughout the morning. Let's get